It was fluorescent light. Yellowed at the edges where the plastic cover hasn't been changed in years. A ceiling tile with a water stain. A thin crack running from the light fixture toward the wall, stopping just short of the corner as if it changed its mind. Then the sound arrives. A slow hiss. Air being pushed in, then a pause. Air being pulled out. Over and over. The sound doesn't speed up. It doesn't slow down. It has been making that exact sound at that exact pace for a very long time. A hand appears at the bottom of the frame. A nurse. She doesn't look up at the ceiling. She checks a monitor, writes a number on a clipboard, replaces the clipboard on its hook. Her shoes squeak once on the linoleum as she turns. The door opens. The door closes. Silence, except for the breathing. A bedside table. A plastic cup with a straw. A small photo in a cracked frame. A man, maybe 38, holding a little girl above his head. She's mid-laugh. Both hands are in the air. He looks like someone who does not understand that the world will ever stop being that good. A plant on the windowsill. Dead. Completely. The soil has pulled away from the edges of the pot. Nobody has watered it in months. Maybe longer. A sticky note on the window reads, in handwriting that has started to fade. Please water, she likes morning light. The man in the bed looks nothing like the man in the photo. Same face. Different everything else. Thinner. Still. A tube in his throat. Wires at his chest. A white sheet pulled up to his collarbone with the kind of neatness that hospitals use when the neatness is the only thing left to control. His eyes are closed. His chest rises. The machine makes that sound. Cut. Now a lawyer's office. Bright. Clean. Completely different world. A woman sits across a desk. She is 37. She is dressed well. Her hair is done. She signs a document. 1 page. 2 pages. 3. The pen moves without hesitation. The lawyer slides the last page across. She signs that one too. Caps the pen. Sets it down. She does not cry. She does not look out the window. She folds her hands in her lap and waits for the lawyer to finish gathering the papers. The camera catches the header on the top page just before it disappears into a manila folder. Consent to withdrawal of life-sustaining treatment patient. Kim Won-bin, date of incident. March 4th, 2019 scheduled withdrawal. 30 days from date of signing. The lawyer says something. She nods. She picks up her bag. She leaves. The camera stays on the desk. On the folder. On the small printed date stamp at the bottom of the visible edge. 22 days ago. She signed it 22 days ago. 8 days remain. The screen goes black. The breathing sound returns, just for 2 seconds. Then silence. They were lilies on the table. Lilies by the door. A bouquet of white roses still in the plastic wrap from the petrol station. Sitting on the kitchen counter because nobody found a vase. The house smells sweet in a way that doesn't feel like a good thing. People move through the rooms holding glasses and plates and wearing the stillness that comes over a crowd when everyone has agreed, without saying so, to keep their voices down. Nobody is dead. But you would not know that from standing in this room. This is not a funeral. There is no casket, no coffin, no grave. Kim Won-bin is alive, technically, legally, physically. His heart beats 23 kilometers away in a hospital bed. His lungs fill and empty on a schedule. His body is warm. But the people in this room have already buried him. They buried him months ago, maybe years ago, and this gathering, with its flowers and its lowered voices and its casserole dishes, is just the part that comes after the decision has already been made. Her name is Sandra Kim. She is the woman from the lawyer's office. Here, in her own home, she is different, looser in the shoulders, slower in the eyes. She accepts a hug from a woman she barely knows. She says thank you for coming 4 times in 6 minutes. She refills her wine glass at the kitchen counter, standing with her back to the room for just a moment longer than necessary. Her daughter is sitting on the stairs. Kendall, 7 years old. White dress. White socks with a little frill at the ankle. She is watching the adults with the focused attention of a child who has learned that watching adults carefully is the only way to understand what is actually happening. Sandra sees her. Crosses the room. Crouches down. You okay? She asks. Kendall looks at the flowers. Why does it smell like a church? Sandra doesn't answer. She straightens up. She puts her hand briefly on Kendall's head and walks back into the room. He is Won-bin's younger brother. 40 years old. Good looking in a way that he is aware of. He is standing by the counter talking to a man in a charcoal suit. Not a mourner, not a neighbor. A man who arrived alone, spoke to no one else, and has been standing in the same spot for 40 minutes. They stop talking when Sandra walks past. Marcus smiles at her. Warm. Immediate. He squeezes her shoulder with one hand. You're doing so well, he says. Won-bin would be proud. She nods. She keeps moving. Marcus watches her go. The warmth leaves his face before she has taken 3 steps. He turns back to the man in the charcoal suit. Says something short. The The man nods once and picks up his coat from the back of a chair. Marcus takes out his phone, opens a folder. The label at the top reads, "The Kim Group, Asset Consolidation, Final Stage." He scrolls. He closes it. He puts the phone back in his pocket. He picks up a glass of water and walks over to join a different conversation, laughing at something before he even gets there. What most people don't know. Under New York and UK inheritance law, a person in a persistent vegetative state is not legally dead, which means their assets cannot be transferred, their will cannot be executed, and anyone managing their estate exists in a legal gray zone that is almost impossible to audit in real time. Sandra sat on the edge of the bed with a manila folder on her lap. She has opened it and closed it 3 times without reading it. The clock on the wall says 11:47. She opens it again. Medical reports. Insurance correspondence. A letter from the Hospital Ethics Board dated 14 months ago. A copy of Wonbin's original diagnosis, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy following cardiac arrest secondary to blunt trauma. In language so clinical it takes the event completely out of the room where it happened and places it somewhere airless and removed. One paragraph is circled in red pen. Not her handwriting. Patient demonstrates no cortical response to stimuli. No evidence of intentional movement. No evidence of awareness. Prognosis, unchanged. Recommend continued palliative management. She has read that paragraph so many times she could recite it. She believes it. She has built her entire last 5 years around believing it. She does not know that 4 months ago, a different neurologist reviewed Wonbin's scan during a routine case audit and found something. He wrote a 1-page addendum. He submitted it to the hospital file. He recommended an immediate follow-up evaluation. Nobody called Sandra. Nobody called him back. The addendum sat in a digital file that 3 people had access to. 2 of them worked under the hospital administrator. The third was the administrator himself. The administrator's name is on a list of 6 people who received a wire transfer from a holding company registered to Marcus Kim 11 months ago. Sandra closes the folder. She turns off the light. She lies down without changing her clothes. 23 kilometers away, in room 14C, the monitor above Wonbin's bed does something it hasn't done in 4 months. A small spike. Sharp. Unmistakable to anyone trained to read it. The night nurse assigned to his room is covering 2 wards tonight because they are understaffed. She is in room 9A when it happens. By the time she returns to 14C, the line is flat again. She writes, "No events overnight." She means it. She didn't see it. The Kim Group had 43 employees, 3 office locations, and a logistics contract with the various country governments worth $70 million annually. Wonbin built it from a single truck and a notebook full of contacts. He drove the first route himself. Marcus had never driven a route in his life. For 5 years, while Wonbin breathed through a tube in room 14C, Marcus ran the company. Signed the contracts. Attended the meetings. Wore the suits. He did it well enough that clients stopped asking about Wonbin after the first year. They stopped mentioning him entirely after the second. By year 3, the name on the company letterhead had changed. Not the business name. Just the signatory. The person whose signature made things legal. Nobody told Sandra. The first document that mattered was a power of attorney, signed 6 weeks after Wonbin's accident, when Sandra was still in the phase of grief, where everything feels like something to get through. Marcus brought it to her at the hospital. He had a lawyer with him. He explained it calmly. Someone needed to manage the business, pay the staff, keep things running while Wonbin recovered. She signed it in a waiting room chair with her coat still on. She doesn't remember doing it. The second document was a directorship transfer, filed 18 months later with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Sandra was not in the room for that one. The third document, the one that would have ended everything for Marcus if anyone had read it carefully, was a deed of assignment transferring Wonbin's majority shareholding to a holding company registered in Seychelles. It was filed on a Tuesday. The lawyer who processed it billed 4 hours. The holding company's sole director was a name nobody would recognize. A 64-year-old retired civil servant in Abuja who had signed his name on 11 similar documents for 11 different clients and never asked a question about any of them. Sandra still thought she owned half of everything. She did not. The night nurse on Wonbin's ward was a woman named Charlotte. She had worked in that hospital for 9 years. She had seen things that made her careful. Careful about what she wrote down, careful about what she said out loud, careful about who she trusted. She trusted her own eyes. She wrote in a personal notebook, not the official chart, things that didn't fit neatly into a medical record. She had 3 entries about Kim Wonbin. The first from 8 months ago. Patient's eyes tracked movement when I changed the 4-line. Lasted approximately 2 seconds. Did not repeat. The second from 5 months ago. Possible intentional blink response when I spoke directly to him. Asked him to blink if he could hear me. He blinked twice. I waited. He did not repeat. Could be involuntary. Logging here only. The third entry was from 6 weeks ago. It was longer than the others. She had pressed harder with the pen. I reported the blink response to the ward supervisor. She told me to document it in the official chart. I did. When I checked the chart the following morning, the entry was gone. I asked the supervisor about it. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. I went back to the chart system. The entry had been deleted. There is no record of it. I am writing this here because I don't know what else to do. His name is Kim Wonbin. Room 14C. Someone should know. Charlotte's notebook was in her locker. Nobody had read it. She hadn't decided yet what to do with what was in it. What she didn't know, what she had no way of knowing, was that the ward supervisor who told her to document the blink response, and then denied the entry existed, had been promoted 6 months earlier. The promotion came with a salary increase, a new office on the 4th floor, and a clause in her revised contract that tied a significant portion of her bonus to bed turnover rates in the long-term care unit. Fewer long-term patients meant a better bonus. It was not written that way, but that was what it meant. This is not unusual. A 2022 investigation by the British Medical Journal found that in at least 14 NHS-affiliated facilities, long-term care documentation had been retroactively altered to reflect patient deterioration. In cases where the deterioration supported a case for withdrawal of care. 11 of those facilities had financial incentive structures tied directly to bed availability. 3 of them had administrators who left their positions before the investigation concluded. None were prosecuted. The neurologist who submitted the addendum about Wonbin's scan was a man named Dr. Kongsu. He was 51. He had spent 20 years studying disorders of consciousness. He had 17 published papers. He had testified in court twice on behalf of patients diagnosed as vegetative who were later found to be aware. He submitted the addendum on a Wednesday afternoon and expected a call back within the week. Nobody called him. He sent a follow-up email 14 days later. The reply came from an administrative assistant. It said the matter was under review. It was signed with a first name only. He replied to that email 3 times. Each reply was delivered. None were answered. On the morning of the day the story begins to break open, Dr. Kongsu is sitting at his desk reading through Wonbin's original scan for the 3rd time. The scan is 11 months old. He is looking at a region of the brain called Wernicke's area, a cluster of tissue in the left temporal lobe responsible for language comprehension. In a patient with no cortical activity, that region is dark. In Kim Wonbin's scan, it is not entirely dark. There is a dim, irregular signal. Faint. Easy to miss if you are not looking for it. Easy to dismiss if you are looking for reasons to close a file. Dr. Kongsu is not looking for reasons to close anything. He picks up his phone. He calls the hospital's main line. He asks, for the 4th time, to be connected to the consultant overseeing room 14C. He is placed on hold. The hold music is something instrumental that was probably chosen because it sounds neutral. After 6 minutes, the line disconnects. He stares at the scan. He puts his phone face down on the desk. Then he opens a new email. He addresses it to a journalist he met at a conference 3 years ago, a woman who covered medical ethics for a national outlet. He types 4 sentences. He attaches the scan. He moves his cursor to the send button. He holds it there. He closes the laptop instead. He will open it again tomorrow. He will move the cursor back to send. He will close it again. He will do this for 4 more days before something happens that makes the decision for him. In room 14C, the ventilator breathes. The monitor holds its line. The photo on the bedside table, the man holding the laughing girl, has gathered a thin film of dust on the frame. Nobody has visited in 11 days. Kendall Kim had been drawing pictures of her father since she was 4 years old. Not from memory. She was 2 when the accident happened. She draws from the photographs. The one on the bedside table, the one in the hallway at home, the one her grandmother keeps on her phone in a folder labeled Wonbin that she scrolls through sometimes when she thinks Kendall isn't watching. The drawings are in a box under her bed. The kind that reams of printer paper come in, which her mother brought home from the office and let her keep. She fills one every 8 months. She is on her 3rd box. The drawings have changed as she's gotten older. The early ones are flat, a round head, 2 lines for arms, a yellow circle overhead that is either the sun or a light. It is impossible to tell. But the ones from this year are different. She has learned to draw hands. She has learned that the light in a room comes from somewhere specific. In the most recent drawing, her father is sitting in a chair by a window. The light falls on one side of his face. His hands are in his lap. His eyes are open. She has never seen his eyes open. She draws them open anyway. Kendall does not talk about the drawings much. She learned, somewhere around age 5, that talking about her father made her mother go somewhere. Not physically, just behind her own face, somewhere Kendall couldn't follow. So she stopped talking about it. She kept drawing. She carries one drawing in her school bag at all times. folded into quarters, tucked into the small front pocket behind her pencil case. She has done this for 2 years. When a teacher once found it during a bag check and asked about it, Kendall said, "It's for when I see him." The teacher didn't ask anything else. Sandra stopped bringing Kendall to the hospital 18 months ago. Marcus suggested it. Not forcefully. Marcus never did anything forcefully when a soft suggestion would do the same job. He said it over dinner, a casual dinner, just the 3 of them, while Kendall was in the other room. He said the visits weren't good for her development. He said children process grief better when they are not repeatedly exposed to environments that reinforce ambiguity. He said he'd read something about it. He mentioned a study. There was no study. Sandra believed him because she wanted to. Because each visit to room 14C cost her something she couldn't name, and stopping felt like relief, and relief felt close enough to the right decision that she stopped examining it. Kendall was not told they were stopping. She was told, the first time she asked to go, that Daddy was resting. The second time, that the hospital had new rules. The third time, Sandra said she would check the schedule and never checked the schedule. Kendall stopped asking after the 4th time. She started drawing more. On a Thursday in October, 6 days before Onebin's withdrawal date, Kendall does not go home after school. She tells her friend she is getting picked up late. She waits until the car park is mostly empty. She knows which bus goes past the hospital. She memorized the route map on the living room wall 2 years ago, during the period when they were still going. She has the bus fare in a zip pocket of her bag. She has had it there for 3 months. She sits on the bus with her school bag on her lap. She watches the streets. She gets off at the right stop without hesitating. The hospital lobby is cold. It smells like floor cleaner, and something underneath the floor cleaner that the floor cleaner is trying to cover. She walks to the lift. She presses 14. She has not been here in 18 months, but she remembers the floor. She remembers the sound the doors make. She remembers which way to turn. Room 14C. The door is half open. She pushes it with one hand and walks in. Here is what neuroscience has confirmed and what most people find almost impossible to believe. The auditory cortex, the part of the brain that processes sound, is among the last regions to lose function in patients with disorders of consciousness. Studies from the University of Western Ontario found that some patients diagnosed as vegetative showed full, measurable brain responses to familiar voices. They heard everything. They simply could not respond. Kendall does not know this. She is 7. She climbs onto the chair beside the bed. She puts her school bag on her lap. She unzips the front pocket and takes out the drawing. The one of him sitting by a window, the light falling on one side of his face, his eyes open. She holds it up so he can see it, in case he can. "I made you something, Daddy," she says. "I made it at school. Mrs. Park said it was really good. The room is quiet. The ventilator breathes. I put the light on the right side," she says, "because that's where the window is in your room." She sets the drawing on the bed beside his hand. His hand is resting on top of the sheet, palm down, fingers loose. She puts her small hand over his. She feels it before she sees it. A tightening. Slow. Barely there. His fingers press, not grip, press gently against the back of her hand. She goes completely still. She looks at his face. His eyes are closed. His face has not changed. She looks at his hand. She lifts her own hand slowly. His fingers settle back against the sheet. She sits back in the chair and holds the drawing in both hands and does not say anything for a long time. A nurse passes the open door. Does not look in. Kendall folds the drawing back into quarters. She puts it in his hand, tucks it under his fingers, presses his fingers gently over it. She stands up. She picks up her bag. She leans close to his ear. "I'm going to come back," she says. "Don't go anywhere." She walks out of the room. Down the corridor. Into the lift. In room 14C, on a secondary monitor mounted on the wall behind the bed. A monitor set up 6 months ago by a junior registrar running a voluntary consciousness study and never properly integrated into the nursing station display. A graph line spikes. Sharp. Sustained for 11 seconds. Then it settles. The timestamp reads 1642. The registrar who set up that monitor has been on leave for 3 weeks. Nobody else knows how to read it. The line holds steady. The drawing stays tucked under Onebin's fingers. Nobody comes to check. The hospital's archive system was not designed to be searched by someone who wasn't supposed to be searching it. That was the first problem Naomi Briggs ran into at 7:14 on a Tuesday morning. Sitting at a terminal in the records room on the 2nd floor with a cold cup of tea beside her keyboard and the door closed behind her. She was a biomedical technician. Her job was equipment calibration, checking that the machines that kept people alive were reading correctly, that the numbers they displayed were the numbers that were actually happening inside a human body. She was good at her job. She had been doing it for 11 years. She knew every monitor in the building by serial number. She had no business being in the archive system. She was in it anyway. It started with the monitor in room 14C. The secondary one. The one the registrar had mounted 6 months ago and never properly logged. She had flagged it 3 times in routine checks as an unregistered device pulling power from the ward circuit. Each time, the paperwork went up and came back down with a note that said pending review. It was never reviewed. She left it alone. Then, 2 days after, a little girl visited room 14C and left a folded drawing tucked under a patient's fingers. Una went in to do a scheduled calibration on the primary ventilator. She checked the primary monitor. She checked the secondary one out of habit. She looked at the stored readout log. She saw the spike at 1642. She stood in front of that screen for a long time. She had calibrated enough monitors to know what a malfunction spike looked like. It was usually instantaneous, a vertical line with no width, an electrical ghost. This was not that. This spike had a shape. It rose, held, varied slightly across 11 seconds, then descended. It had the irregular texture of something biological. She took a photo of the screen with her personal phone. She stood in the doorway of the room for a moment, looking at the man in the bed. Then she went back to her office and started searching. The archive system required a clinician's login. She used one she wasn't supposed to have, a legacy credential from a system migration 2 years ago that IT had never deactivated. She knew about it because she had been in the room when the migration happened, and the technician had written the credentials on a post-it note and stuck it to the monitor and walked away and never came back for it, and she had kept it. Not for any reason she could name at the time, just because she had learned in 11 years that information had a way of maturing later. She pulled Kim Wonbin's full file. She found the addendum. Dr. Kongsu's 4 paragraphs, submitted 4 months ago, flagged urgent, logged as received. She found the follow-up email chain. 3 emails from Dr. Kongsu, 3 delivery confirmations, 0 replies. She found the original scan. She found, in the same folder, a second scan, same patient name, same file number, different date. Different result. This one was clean. Completely dark in the regions the original showed activity. It was labeled as the most recent scan. It was not the most recent scan. The date had been changed. Her hands were still on the keyboard. She did not move them. She printed 4 documents. She folded them into the inside pocket of her jacket. She logged out of the system. She washed her cup in the staff kitchen. She walked to the car park on her lunch break and sat in her car and called the number on Dr. Kongsu's published faculty profile. He answered on the second ring. She talked for 6 minutes. He did not interrupt once. When she finished, he said, "Can you send me the photo of that monitor readout?" She sent it while they were still on the phone. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I need you to understand that if you take this further, your name will be on it." "I know," she said. "They will come for your job first." "I know that too." He told her he would contact an independent neurologist, someone outside the hospital's network, someone who couldn't be reached by whoever had been doing the reaching. He told her to make copies of everything and keep them somewhere that was not her workplace. He told her not to talk to anyone at the hospital about any of it. She drove back to the hospital. She did her afternoon calibrations. She smiled at the ward supervisor when they passed in the corridor. The ward supervisor smiled back. That evening, Dr. Kongsu called Dr. Briggs. She was 54. She had trained at UCL, practiced in London for 12 years, returned to New York to run a private neurology clinic. She had diagnosed 4 cases of locked-in syndrome in her career, 2 of them in patients who had been classified as vegetative for over a year. She had written about the misdiagnosis rate in a paper that was cited 47 times and ignored by the 3 hospitals she sent it to directly. This is the part that most people don't know, the part that sits in peer-reviewed journals that the public never reads. Studies estimate that up to 40% of patients diagnosed as being in a vegetative state are misdiagnosed. 40%. In some of those cases, the patient is fully conscious, aware of every conversation, every decision, every person who walks in and out of the room and speaks about them as if they are already gone. Dr. Briggs reviewed the original scan, the altered scan, the addendum, and the monitor readout in one sitting. She called Dr. Kongsu back at 10:48 p.m. "This man is not vegetative," she said. "Can you prove it?" "I can if I can get in the room with him." There were 7 days left. The next morning, Una arrived at work to find a letter in her staff pigeonhole. It was from hospital HR. It informed her that a review had been initiated into her use of archived clinical records outside her authorized scope. It said she was required to attend a formal meeting the following Monday. It said she should consider seeking union representation. Monday was after the withdrawal date. She read the letter standing in the corridor. She folded it. She put it in her pocket next to the copy of the altered scan. She went upstairs and calibrated 3 ventilators and did not say anything to anyone. At lunch, she drafted an email. She addressed it to a journalist, a different one from the journalist Dr. Kongsu had been thinking about contacting, Someone Una had gone to university with, someone who covered health and public accountability for a national paper. She attached the monitor photo, the scan comparison, and a 2-paragraph summary of what she had found. She read it over twice. She pressed send. The email delivered. 2 gray ticks. She watched the screen. The ticks did not turn blue. She refreshed. Still gray. She checked the address, correct. She checked her sent folder. It was there. She looked up the journalist's name online and found, on the paper's website, a notice published 4 days ago. The journalist was on an 8-week fellowship abroad. Her work email was on an automated hold. All incoming messages were being held unread until her return. 6 days left. The email sat unread in a suspended inbox. Una closed her phone. She looked out the window of the staff kitchen at the car park below. A man was walking to his car. An ordinary man. He put his briefcase in the boot, got in, drove away. Nobody was watching him. Nobody needed to be. She opened her contacts. She scrolled. She stopped on a name. A lawyer she had met at her cousin's wedding 3 years ago. A human rights lawyer, the kind who took cases that other lawyers described as complicated. She had kept the number because he had pressed his card into her hand at the end of the night and said, with the quiet certainty of someone who meant it, "If you ever see something that shouldn't be happening, call me. Not later. Call me." She called him. He answered on the 4th ring. She started talking. Start with what you know about silence. Not the silence of an empty room. Or the silence after an argument when both people have left. The silence of a room that is full, nurses, doctors, a wife, a brother, visitors with flowers and lowered voices. Where every single person in that room is talking about you as if you are a piece of furniture that has developed the inconvenient habit of not dying on schedule. That silence. The one that fills 5 years. Kim Won-bin did not lose consciousness on the night of March 4th, 2019. Not entirely. Not the way the chart said. What happened to his body on that highway was catastrophic and real. A truck running a red light at 80 kilometers per hour, a door crumpling inward, a head meeting a window with the full weight of physics behind it. His heart stopped at the scene. Paramedics restarted it after 4 minutes and 20 seconds. For minutes and 20 seconds without blood to the brain leaves a very specific kind of damage. The kind that shows up on scans as darkness, as absence, as the medical language for gone. But Won-bin was not gone. He was in there, watching the ceiling, listening to the ventilator, learning the schedule of every nurse on his ward by the sound of their shoes on the linoleum. Charlotte, the night nurse, wore soft-soled trainers that made almost no sound. She was the one who spoke to him directly. Not always, not every shift, but sometimes a low, unhurried voice telling him what she was doing as she did it. "I'm just checking your line, Won-bin. Everything looks good." He had learned to wait for her shifts. He had learned to tell time by the quality of the light coming through the gap in the curtains. He could not move. He could not speak. He could not make his face do anything at all. The signals from his brain reached the edge of his motor cortex and stopped, like a man running full speed into a wall of glass. The intention, the effort, the desperate wanting, all of it arriving and going nowhere. Except for one thing. Occasionally, barely, he could blink. Not on command. Not reliably. But the ability was there, faint and intermittent, like a radio signal at the edge of its range. He had spent the first year not understanding what had happened to him. The second year understanding it completely and trying, with everything he had, to make something move. The third year was the worst. The third year was when he heard the first real conversation between Marcus and the hospital administrator. Not a phone call, a conversation, in the room, because they thought he was a piece of furniture. He heard his brother say, "How long before the family can reasonably be expected to move forward?" He heard the administrator say, "These decisions are always sensitive, but 6 months is not unreasonable to suggest." He heard Marcus say, "Sandra is already struggling. I don't want to push. But I also don't want her making decisions from grief rather than reality." His heart rate monitor spiked. Nobody was watching it. He had been trying to tell people things for 2 years by the time Charlotte noticed the blink response. He had been trying to tell people things for 2 years before she wrote it in her notebook. He had been trying to tell people things for 2 years before the entry she made in the official chart was deleted the following morning, and the ward supervisor told her she didn't know what she was talking about. He could not cry. He had lost that, along with everything else. But he felt something that lived in the same neighborhood as despair, a full, heavy, pressurized thing that had nowhere to go. What kept him was Kendall. Not the visits, because the visits had stopped. The memory of them. Her voice. The weight of her small hand on the bed rail. The way she talked to him not as if he might be able to hear, but as though it had simply never occurred to her that he couldn't. Children below the age of 8 do not perform belief. They either believe or they don't. Kendall believed her father was in the room. She talked to the room. She talked to him. The last visit before Sandra stopped bringing her. Won-bin remembered it with a completeness that he couldn't explain physiologically, only emotionally. Kendall had been 5. She had climbed onto the chair. She had told him, in great detail, about a bird that had flown into their classroom window and stunned itself, and sat on the sill for 20 minutes before flying away. She had described the exact color of its wing. She had asked him, at the end, if he thought the bird remembered hitting the window after it flew away, or if it just felt the sky and forgot. He had wanted to answer that question every day since. Then, 18 months ago, she stopped coming. The visits just ended. He waited through 1 week, then 2. He told himself she was sick. He told himself it was school. By the 3rd week, he knew Sandra had stopped bringing her. He knew, with the particular certainty of someone who has nothing to do but listen, that the decision had not been entirely Sandra's. Then on a Thursday in October, at 4:38 in the afternoon, he heard footsteps in the corridor that were too small and too light to belong to any member of the hospital staff. He heard the door push open. He heard her voice. "I made you something, Daddy." The locked-in brain, researchers now know, does not dull with time. It sharpens. Deprived of the ability to act, the mind turns inward and intensifies. Memory becomes more vivid, sensory perception becomes more acute, emotional response becomes more concentrated. One patient who recovered from 4 years of locked-in syndrome described hearing his daughter's voice after a long absence as feeling like every circuit in my body firing at once. Won-bin felt her put the drawing on the bed. He felt her hand cover his. He used everything. Every signal his brain could generate. Every fragment of motor intention that had failed him for 3 years. He pushed it all toward his right hand, toward his fingers, toward the small warm hand resting on top of them. His fingers pressed down. Barely. A fraction of movement. Enough. She went still. He felt it, the sudden stillness of her whole body, the held breath. He could not open his eyes. He could not speak. He could not tell her, "I am here. I have always been here. I heard you every time." He felt her tuck the drawing under his fingers. He felt the paper thin and warm. He heard her lean close. "I'm going to come back. Don't go anywhere." He held on to that sentence. He replayed it. He put it somewhere in his mind where he kept the things that had kept him alive. The memory of her laugh, the color of the bird's wing, the thought that someone in the world still believed he was in the room. 6 days later, on the morning his withdrawal was scheduled, he was still holding it. The drawing was still under his fingers. Nobody had moved it. A night nurse had seen it and assumed a family member had left it. She had left it alone. He was waiting. He had been waiting for 5 years. 6 more days was not nothing, but it was not everything either. He had stopped thinking in certainties. He thought in smaller units now. The next shift change, the next time Charlotte's soft-soled shoes came down the corridor, the next sound at the door that might be too small and too light to belong to anyone but her. He listened. He waited. The ventilator breathed. The human rights lawyer's name was Teo. He was 46. He had a reputation in Seoul legal circles that split cleanly down the middle. Half the people who knew him described him as relentless. The other half used a different word that meant the same thing. He had won cases that senior partners at better-funded firms had refused to touch. He had also lost cases he should have won, and he remembered every one of them with the specific precision of a man who does not allow himself to forget what losing costs. Una called him at 6:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked 3 questions. He asked for the documents. She sent them while they were still on the phone. He opened them, scrolled, closed his eyes once, opened them again. "The withdrawal is scheduled for tomorrow morning," she said. "I know," he said, as if he had already accepted the timeline and was simply working inside it now. He called Dr. Briggs. She had already spoken to Dr. Kongsu. They had already agreed on what needed to happen. What they did not have was access. Without a court order, nobody could compel the hospital to delay the withdrawal or permit an independent evaluation. Teo told them he would have an emergency motion filed by midnight. He told Dr. Briggs to be available from 6 a.m. He told Una not to go to work the next morning. She said she was going anyway. He told her that was her choice to make. She said she knew. At the hospital, the evening shift changed at 8. The nurse who came on was not Charlotte. Charlotte was off rotation. The nurse who took her station did her rounds quickly. She was covering an extra patient that night because the ward was short. She checked Won-bin's vitals, wrote her numbers, moved on. She did not look at the secondary monitor. She did not see the folded drawing still tucked under his fingers. And if she had, she would not have known what it meant. Marcus received a phone call at 8:23 p.m. from a number he did not recognize. He let it ring. It rang again. He answered. The voice on the other end was calm. It was the hospital administrator. He said there had been some internal inquiries about Kim Won-bin's file. He said a technician had accessed archived records outside her clearance. He said it was being handled. He said Marcus should not worry. Marcus said he wasn't worried. He hung up. He stood in his kitchen for a moment. He picked up his keys. He drove to the hospital. He arrived at 9:11 p.m. He signed in at reception as next of kin. He took the lift to the 14th floor. He walked to room 14C. He pushed the door open and stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at his brother the way you look at a problem you have been managing for a long time and are very tired of managing. He stepped inside. He pulled the door most of the way closed behind him. "This ends tomorrow," he said. He was not talking to himself. He was talking to Wonbin. The way you talk to someone you believe cannot answer, which is to say, without any of the softness you would use if you thought they were listening. "I want you to know I didn't enjoy any of it," Marcus said. "You were supposed to get better. In the beginning I thought you would. I want you to know that." The ventilator breathed. "Sandra is going to be fine. Kendall is going to be fine. I will make sure of that. I've always made sure of that." He stood there for another moment. Then he turned and walked out. In the corridor, he nearly walked into Kendall. She was there with her grandmother, Wonbin's mother, a woman named Cecilia who was 71 and who Sandra had called that afternoon because Kendall had gone missing from school pickup and had been found at the hospital by a security guard who recognized her from previous visits and had let her sit in the lobby for an hour before calling the family. Cecilia had come to collect her. They were on their way out. Kendall was holding her grandmother's hand. She was also holding a new drawing, rolled into a tube, in her other hand. She looked at her uncle. She said nothing. Children who have learned to watch adults carefully can sometimes see things that adults hide from each other without effort. Kendall looked at Marcus the way she had looked at the adults at the flower gathering, with full, quiet attention. Marcus smiled at her. "What are you doing here so late, sweetheart?" "Visiting Daddy," she said. "You know he can't." Marcus stopped. Started again. "You know visiting hours are over." "I know," she said. "I already went." Cecilia pulled Kendall gently toward the lift. Marcus watched them go. As the lift doors opened, Kendall turned around and looked at him one more time. She did not smile. The doors closed. Marcus stood in the corridor for a moment. Then he took out his phone. What he did not know, what he had no way of knowing, was that a visitor 2 rooms down had been sitting in the corridor for the last 20 minutes waiting for a nurse. An older man. Retired. He was there because his wife was a patient and he had stayed past visiting hours and nobody had moved him along. He was sitting in a chair by the wall with his coat on his lap. His name was Dr. Coker. He was 67. He had spent 30 years as an ICU consultant before retiring. He had seen more patients in states of disorder of consciousness than he could count, and he had spent the last decade of his career arguing, in lectures and in letters to medical journals, and in conversations that exhausted everyone around him, that the diagnostic criteria for vegetative state were applied too quickly and abandoned too rarely. He had heard everything Marcus said inside room 14C. The door had not been fully closed. Sound travels in a quiet hospital corridor the way it travels nowhere else. He sat with his coat on his lap for a moment after Marcus walked away. Then he stood up. He walked to room 14C. He pushed the door open. He stood beside the bed. He took out a small pen torch from his coat pocket. The kind a retired doctor carries the way other people carry mints, from a habit that doesn't leave. He checked Wonbin's pupil response. He asked Wonbin in a low voice to blink twice if he could hear him. A pause. 2 blinks. Dr. Coker straightened up. He put the pen torch back in his pocket. He took out his phone and called his former colleague, a woman who was currently a consultant neurologist at a different hospital and who was also on the board of the Korea Medical Council's Ethics Committee. It is worth knowing that in Korea, as in most countries, a formal complaint to a medical ethics board can trigger an automatic hold on any scheduled medical procedure pending investigation. A hold that, under the Council's 2018 revised guidelines, takes effect within hours of a complaint being logged, not days. Most people don't know this exists. Most people don't know to use it. Dr. Coker knew. His colleague answered. He told her what he had seen and what he had heard. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Send me the patient's name and ward number. I'll log it tonight." The hold was triggered at 11:52 p.m., 8 minutes before midnight and 9 hours before the scheduled withdrawal. At 11:54, a hospital administrator received an automated notification on his phone. He sat up in bed and read it twice. He called Marcus. Marcus did not answer. He was already in the hospital car park, having driven back after Cecilia's car pulled away, sitting in his car trying to reach Dr. H, and getting no answer. He called 3 more times. He got out of the car. He went back inside. He took the lift to the 14th floor. He was halfway down the corridor toward the administrator's office when he walked directly into Dr. Teo, who had arrived at the hospital 40 minutes earlier with a printed emergency motion, 2 copies, and the name of the on-call hospital registrar, who was legally required to receive it. They stood in the corridor facing each other. Marcus said, "Who are you?" Teo said, I'm the lawyer representing Kim Wonbin's right to an independent neurological evaluation before any withdrawal of care proceeds. He held up the motion. This was filed at 11:31. The ethics hold was logged at 11:52. The withdrawal scheduled for tomorrow morning is suspended. A visitor at the end of the corridor had their phone out. Not deliberately, they had been filming a voice message to someone when the confrontation started, and they kept filming because the human instinct when something suddenly becomes charged is to stay still and keep recording. Marcus looked at the camera. He looked at Teo. He looked at the motion in Teo's hand. "You have no idea what this family has been through," he said, and his voice had changed. The warmth was gone, the management was gone, and what was underneath was something much simpler and much uglier. He has been gone for 5 years. 5 years. And now you want to drag Sandra back through this because of a spike on an unregistered monitor? He is not in there. He has never been in there. I would know. I am his brother. Teo said nothing. He had learned, across 20 years of contested rooms, that silence after a speech like that one is more damaging than any reply. The person at the end of the corridor was still filming. By 7 a.m. the following morning, the clip had been viewed 340,000 times. By noon it was 1.2 million. Comment sections filled with medical professionals, lawyers, and people who had lost family members in similar circumstances. A hashtag appeared. Journalists called the hospital's press line. Journalists called Teo. A journalist called Sandra. Sandra was sitting at her kitchen table when her phone rang. She had not slept. She had received the notification about the hold at midnight and had not understood what it meant and had called Marcus and gotten no answer. She stared at her phone. Unknown number. She answered it. The journalist on the other end spoke carefully. She said she was sorry to call so early. She said she had some questions about Kim Wonbin. She said she thought Sandra deserved to know what had been filed in her husband's medical record 4 months ago. Sandra's hand tightened around the phone. "What are you talking about?" she said. "There was an addendum," the journalist said, "from a neurologist named Dr. Kongsu. It was submitted to your husband's file in June. It recommended an immediate evaluation. Nobody called you." The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, a bird landed on the window ledge. It stayed there for a moment. It flew away. "Nobody called me," Sandra said. "No," said the journalist. "Nobody called you." The court injunction came through at 9:17 a.m. Teo was standing in the hospital lobby when his phone buzzed with the confirmation. He read it once. He forwarded it to Dr. Briggs. He forwarded it to Dr. Kongsu. He walked to the reception desk and handed the duty manager a printed copy and waited while the duty manager read it and picked up her phone and called upstairs. The withdrawal, scheduled for 9 a.m., had already been delayed by the ethics hold. Now it was suspended indefinitely, pending independent neurological evaluation. The hospital's legal team arrived at 9:45. They reviewed the injunction, conferred in a hallway for 11 minutes, and instructed the ward to provide full access to Dr. Briggs. Dr. Briggs walked into room 14C at 10:08 a.m. She was alone. She had asked for that specifically. No entourage, no students, no observers. Just her, the patient, and whatever was actually happening in that room. She pulled a chair to the bedside. She sat down. She looked at Kim Wonbin for a moment. At the tubes, the monitors, the white sheet, the photo on the bedside table with the thin film of dust on the frame. She looked at his hand, where a folded piece of paper was still tucked under his fingers. She did not move it. "Wonbin," she said. "My name is Dr. Briggs. I'm a neurologist. I'm not part of this hospital. I was asked to come and see you by people who think the current picture of your condition is not accurate." She paused. "I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to blink once for yes and twice for no. Take your time. There's no right answer. I just need to know if you can hear me." The room was quiet. The ventilator breathed. One blink. Dr. Briggs did not change her expression. She had trained herself, over many years and many rooms like this one, not to react in ways that might influence what she was seeing. But her hand, resting on her knee, pressed flat against her leg. She asked 12 questions. She asked if he knew his name. She asked if he knew where he was. She asked if he could feel her hand when she placed it over his. She asked him to blink twice if he had been able to hear conversations in the room during his time here. 2 slow, deliberate blinks. She asked him if he understood what had been scheduled to happen this morning. A long pause. Then 1 blink. She closed her notebook. She sat back. She looked at him. "Okay," she said quietly. "We're going to get you out of this." What she was seeing had a name that most people have never heard. Locked-in syndrome, a condition so complete in its cruelty that it has no visible surface. The brain works. The mind works. Thoughts form, memories hold, emotions rise and move through the body with full force. But the body does not answer. The neurological pathway between intention and movement is severed, leaving a person fully conscious inside a body that the outside world reads as empty. The French have a phrase for it, morts vivants, the living dead. Jean-Dominique Bobby, a magazine editor who developed locked-in syndrome in 1995, dictated an entire memoir by blinking his left eyelid, one letter at a time, from a blinked alphabet, producing 130 pages that described the interior life of a man the world had already stopped expecting to have one. Wonbin had no such system. Nobody had offered him one. For 3 years, the only tool he had was an intermittent ability to press his fingers, barely, against whatever was resting near his hand, and nobody had been trained to feel it. Dr. Briggs ordered a full battery of evaluations. She brought in a specialist from her clinic with a portable eye-tracking device, a piece of technology that detects the movement of the iris and translates it into communication, letter by letter, word by word. It is not a complicated machine. It costs less than a used car. It exists specifically for cases like this one, and is used routinely in advanced neurological facilities worldwide. It had never been brought into room 14C. In 5 years, nobody had ordered one. The eye-tracking calibration took 40 minutes. The specialist worked quietly, making small adjustments, checking the feed on a tablet screen. Wonbin's eyes followed the cursor across the grid. Left, right, up, center. At 11:34 a.m., the device was ready. The specialist looked at Dr. Briggs. Dr. Briggs nodded. The specialist said, "Wonbin, I'm going to show you a letterboard on this screen. Move your eyes to the letter you want. Hold your gaze on it for 2 seconds, and it will register. Take as long as you need." The cursor moved to the letter grid. His eyes moved. W, H, E, R, E. The specialist read it aloud as it came. Where? Dr. Briggs said. Where who, Wonbin? Can you finish the thought? His eyes moved again. Slower now. The effort was visible in the tension around his eyes, the only place his body had room to show it. K, E, N, D, A, L, L. The room was very quiet. Dr. Briggs turned to the specialist. Get the family, she said. Sandra had arrived at the hospital at 10:30, after the journalist's call, and after 3 hours of sitting in her kitchen going back through every document, every conversation, every moment in the last 4 months when something had felt slightly wrong and she had smoothed it over because the alternative, that she had been managed, that she had been kept from the truth in her own husband's medical file, was a thing she had not been ready to hold. She was ready now. She had not brought Kendall. She had left her with Cecilia. She walked into the hospital alone and was met by Teo in the lobby, who walked her through what had happened. The addendum, the altered scan, the ethics hold, the injunction, Dr. Briggs's evaluation. He spoke clearly and without softening the edges. She listened without interrupting. She asked 2 questions. He answered them both directly. She had been sitting in the family waiting room on the 14th floor when Dr. Briggs's specialist came to find her. He said the evaluation was complete. He said Dr. Briggs wanted to see her. He said she might want to call whoever else needed to be there. She called Cecilia. Cecilia arrived with Kendall at 12:14 p.m. Kendall was in her school uniform. She was carrying her school bag. She walked through the hospital lobby the way she had walked through it 2 days earlier. Without hesitation, without looking at the ceiling or the reception desk or any of the things that make children slow down in large, unfamiliar spaces. She knew this building. She had memorized it at the age of 5. In the lift, she stood beside her mother and did not ask any questions. Sandra held her hand. The lift rose. The doors opened on the 14th floor. Dr. Briggs was waiting in the corridor. She looked at Kendall. She crouched down slightly. You're Kendall, she said. Yes, said Kendall. Your dad has been asking for you, Dr. Briggs said. In a way. He asked where you were. That was the first thing he said. Kendall looked at her mother. Sandra's face had done something complicated and was still doing it. Can I go in? Kendall asked. Yes, said Dr. Briggs. You can go in. Sandra stayed in the corridor. This was not because she didn't want to go in. It was because she understood, with a clarity that had arrived somewhere in the last 4 hours, that the first person in that room needed to be Kendall. It had always needed to be Kendall. The first conversation needed to belong to the two of them. Kendall pushed open the door to room 14C. She walked in. She put her bag on the chair. She looked at her father, at the tubes, the monitors, the sheet, the eye-tracking device now mounted beside the bed on a small adjustable arm. She looked at his hand, where the drawing was still tucked under his fingers. Her drawing. From 2 days ago. She climbed onto the chair. She leaned her elbows on the bed rail. Hi, Daddy, she said. The specialist, standing quietly near the monitor, close enough to manage the device, far enough to be almost not there, watched the screen. Wonbin's eyes moved to the letter grid. H.I. The specialist read it aloud, barely above a whisper. Kendall heard it. She sat up straight. She looked at the screen, then at her father's face, then at the screen again. Can he actually? She started. Yes, said the specialist. He can talk to you. Take your time. She turned back to her father. Her voice, when it came, was completely steady. 7 years old and completely steady. I knew you could hear me, she said. I told Mummy. She didn't know. But I knew. His eyes moved. I knew you would come back. The specialist's voice broke on the last word. Just slightly. He reset himself and read it again clearly. Kendall reached into her school bag. She took out a drawing, new rolled into a tube, brought from home. She unrolled it on the bed beside his hand so he could see it. It was the same as the others. Him in a chair, light from the window, eyes open. But in this one, there was a second chair in the frame. A smaller one. Pulled up close. Someone sitting in it. Small. White dress. White socks with a frill at the ankle. I put myself in this one, she said. I didn't before because I didn't know if there was room. But I think there's room. Wonbin's eyes moved to the grid. He held his gaze on each letter for the full 2 seconds. He did not rush. I heard you every time. Kendall pressed her lips together. One short breath in. Then she put her hand over his. Over the fingers that had pressed down 2 days ago, barely enough, and she held it. In the corridor, Sandra stood with her back against the wall and her hand over her mouth. Cecilia stood beside her. Neither of them spoke. Dr. Briggs stood a little further down, looking at the floor, giving the family the corridor. The ventilator still breathed. It would continue to breathe for several more months while a full rehabilitation plan was developed, while a legal case was built around the altered medical records and the suppressed addendum and the wire transfers and the man who was now unreachable by phone and had not been seen since 6 a.m. that morning when a car registered to Kim Group Logistics was captured on a toll camera leaving Seoul on the expressway. The rehabilitation would be long. It would not be clean or simple or linear. Recovery from prolonged locked-in syndrome is among the most demanding processes in modern medicine. The brain must rebuild communication pathways that have been silent for years, and some of them never fully reopen. Wonbin would spend 4 months relearning how to breathe without the machine. 8 months relearning voluntary movement in his right hand. He would speak his first word aloud, not through the eye tracker, but through his own voice, thin and strange and entirely his. 14 months after Kendall walked back into his room. The word was her name. But that morning, in room 14C, none of that had happened yet. What had happened was smaller and larger than all of it at once. A man had asked where his daughter was. His daughter had come. She had put her hand over his. He had told her he heard her every time. Outside the window, the sky was the specific pale blue of a morning that has not yet decided what kind of day it will be. The dead plant was still on the sill. Someone would think to water it later, and it would be too far gone, and they would throw it out and put nothing in its place for a while. And then one morning a nurse on the early shift would arrive with a small green succulent in a terracotta pot and set it on the sill without making any particular announcement about it, and it would get the morning light, and it would be fine.